My name is Jaime-Jin and I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia. My whole life I feel like I've been an other, from being an Asian American, being female, being a transracial adoptee, being a Southerner who is growing up in a religious household. All of these things have contributed to, but also made it a little bit trickier, I feel, to find, to arrive at who I feel like I am. I first came out as queer to mostly gay and lesbian folks who, of course, had the question of, why queer over gay and lesbian, and really how I delineate that is that, I've been in relationships with many different types of people who identify as male, female, gender nonconforming. A few years ago, I was actually sitting at a bar with a guy, a straight cisgendered man who I had a relationship with, and we were just talking, and I had never told him that I was queer or that I had been in relationships with women, specifically right after him. I think he said something about, implying about if I was seeing other guys. I was like, you know what, I'm queer. And I looked at him and he was smiling, but after a minute he just started laughing. He was like, I knew. A few months later, I was back in my hometown around the holidays. I actually ended up going out to dinner with a close friend from my childhood, and we went to church together. We were in Bible study together. We actually led Bible studies together. She's still very active in the church. And she asked me about what was new in my life. And so I told her, I just said, well, something you actually don't know about me is that I sometimes date women. And there was the silence, the pause again. And she looked back and she smiled. And she said, cool, tell me about her. More than that, she was, that sounds really great. I'm really happy for you. You play out all of the worst things that people could say or think. Really, to this day, no one's played out the worst scenario in my story, which I feel very lucky for. The conversations with my parents have definitely been ongoing, but I think that that's good. I mean, I think that it's really hard to unlearn a lot of the things that we learn from a young age, especially for them, that homosexuality was a sin or that it was a choice or that, all of these myths surrounding it. And the same with race. Growing up in the South as one of the only Asian American people in our city versus their experience growing up in predominantly white spaces as white folks. So the idea of coming out to my parents, even as Asian American, I laugh about it, but it is telling them, this is my experience and it's different than yours. I think that queerness is especially important because it does break all of those boundaries and molds. In doing so, it also creates a pathway for another way of being. So let's not pretend that, the difference doesn't exist or that we'd be better if we were all the same. That it's something I've come to really love about myself.